My name is Janelle Navarro, and I am the Department Chair for Comparative Ethnic Studies. I'm also the President for the American Indian Faculty and Staff Association, and I advise both of our American Indian student clubs on campus. The Native American and Indigenous Cultural Center is a gathering space for intertribal students across campus. It's also a space where we certainly invite the local community to be a part of, and our faculty and staff as well. The mural is actually a multi-year project in the making. About 2015, the American Indian Students and the American Indian Faculty Staff Association started having meetings with upper administration about opening a center for Native American students. And one of the first requests that our students made repeatedly to our Cal Poly administration was to have a mural in the space. They wanted the mural to be painted by an Indigenous artist, and actually the main symbolism in the mural, which is a red-tailed hawk, was also something that our Native students initiated.
My name is Joel Garcia. I live in East Los Angeles, traditionally known as Apachanga, homeland of unceded homelands of the Tongva tribal nation. And I'm here in San Luis Obispo, homeland of the Chumash, the yakʔitະut̥u, working on this mural. I'm with Joel on my father's side, so that's my Indigenous descendancy from my father, from my mother. That history is a little bit iffy because her mom and her family were deported to Mexico during the Mexican Repatriation Act. So I come to my indigeneity and where I live and work through that analysis. The title of the mural, Rooted in Native Knowledge, carries a lot of different layers and meanings for me. Many times, like Indigenous knowledge and the wisdom of our elders and our grandparents doesn't get the recognition as somebody with a PhD. So for me, this is a way of broadening what we interpret as intellectuals.
Native knowledge a lot of times isn't given the same respect as Western knowledge. I think that the world in general has so much to learn from Native people, and that our knowledge is just as valuable. When
we use the word intellectual, there's always a reference point of higher learning, college, universities. A central part of my work is uplifting non-institutional expertise. When we work with youth who have been through the foster system, or who have been formerly incarcerated, or who just live in underserved neighborhoods, they're the experts of their reality, and they know exactly what it takes to address the lack of resources in their communities. And these technologies that our Indigenous ancestors developed, right? They developed outside of these institutions of higher learning, but it doesn't mean that that knowledge is any less. And so this mural and this title kind of represents this cradle of like all these different forms of knowledges that are just as valid and as important.
I hope that people feel inspired to embrace their traditions and their ancestors' knowledge and not feel like ashamed of it.
I do a lot of work with plants in my artwork. One of the prompts for many of the workshops that I do is asking people to reflect on the relationships their families have with plants. There's always some sort of plant that like a family is super connected to. There's this Chumash elder named Julie, and this is the one plant relative that her family was connected to, so she felt like she needed to uplift the California rose. For her, the California rose talks about all the wonderful and diverse plant life there is in California that has not only sustained people here, but even now with agriculture and farming, that it continues to be a land of abundance and sustenance, and that we have to be stewards to that. It was great to walk on campus and then see that there's some roses just outside the door. So it's kind of like that connection, bring it full circle again. Coming up here to San Luis Obispo, numerous times we've seen various red-tailed hawks dead alongside the road. I firmly believe of rescuing these relatives, even if they've transitioned into the spirit world. So for me, the red-tailed hawk and this community and coming up here has carried that sense of like seeing so many of them dead alongside the highway. In many ways, it goes into like how we nurture and take care of the non-human world, all other living beings. Like, how do you care for people when you're in charge of their spirit and their presence, whether you're teaching, whether you're facilitating an art workshop, transmitting knowledge in any form? And so the hawk represents a lot of that, right? That visioning, that strength, that protectiveness. And driving up here every morning, there's these two hawks perched alongside the road, and they've been there every morning, which is interesting. And you can see them just overlooking the highway. So coming back full circle to that story, rescuing these hawks, and then coming up here now watching the hawks watch over me as I drive up to the school. So that's kind of symbolism, like how we're going to take care of these students, how we're going to nurture their development as intellectuals, as creatives, as community members, and future leaders. Mural making or muralism is one of the few art forms that in its philosophical approach has the mentorship process like built into it. It was great to see like the students come in and really just dive deep into the process and give them the space to have ownership over the wall and the mural and just do what's going to come to them. This is going to be their space. They should have full control over the development of this mural.
So I worked on the lines, next is the lettering and the fading of the lettering. It's been really cathartic, to be honest with you. It's very relaxing. So this is my third day coming back to paint.
Actually being able to do something hands-on was really healing, reflective, and also pretty restorative, especially since a lot of the ASA folks and my Native brothers and sisters were able to be here.
It was really nice to see everything finally coming together with the center and making it more vibrant inside with the art, and just to have community come together after we've been apart for so long with COVID.
It makes me happy, very bright colors, but I also feel like it brings this space to life and it makes it a home for the Indigenous group here on campus.
I was actually able to see something tangible as opposed to just hearing about a potential space or about an idea that really will not be in fruition anytime soon.
The idea of even just land acknowledgements, they're extremely important tools, but they also have to be put into action in many ways. You can acknowledge a land only so much before it becomes tokenized and loses its meaning. And hopefully this is a starting point in how Cal Poly invests in Native students and the Native community here, so that it isn't just like one and done, but that this is the seed for something new.
My hope is that this mural is seen as a love letter to our Native American and Indigenous students, and that they know they are seen, they're heard, we're always here for them, and we will continue to support them at Cal Poly and beyond. I'd like to thank so many different people that came together to make this mural and this center possible, including our Office of University Diversity and Inclusion, the Department of Ethnic Studies, our Student Affairs Office, Student Diversity and Belonging, and University Housing. And I also want to give a sincere thanks to the yakʔit̔ut־ yakʔitະut뾱Northern Chumash tribe. They gave us feedback on the mural, and we sincerely hope that this will be a space that they will utilize frequently and join us for many events and programming as we roll the center out next year.
You know, it's hard to say like, let's do a Native Indigenous mural. And there's always all these expectations of what that should look like, what aesthetic it should have. So I really appreciated being able to do something that was fun, something that was powerful, but it's also an attempt to broaden the perspective of what like Native art is and who gets to define that. So I didn't want it to be something that was very falling into like stereotypes of what Native art muralism is, and do something that can broaden that perspective of what it can be. At the end of the day, it's something that should be fun, something that should be joyful for students, and that's kind of how this whole process has been. It's been a joyful process.